Thank you very much. So I've been asked to try and gallop you through a potted history of the Linnean Society's digital strategy. So in the next 15 minutes, I'll try and talk about leaps forward, great ideas, things that may have seemed like great ideas at the time, as well as some great outcomes worth shouting about. I will attempt a summary of the drivers behind the evolution of the Society's online collections. So, for instance, changing technologies, changing research practices, changing funding climates, changing focus, and survival of the fittest. Our brief or remit for the Linnean Society's digital projects and the online collections sounds straightforward enough. First of all, a translation, as it were, from locked strong room to open access online platform. Make sure that the original material held by the Society is imaged and freely and remotely available to all. Secondly, and this is a more recent and infinitely more tricky addition to this remit, tackle the information overload that we inherited from the father of modern taxonomy and master classifier of all times, Carl Linnaeus himself. So, it is the saying, God created, Linnaeus ordered, this phrase is attributed to Linnaeus, and it nicely captures the sheer scale and ambition of his undertaking. So Linnaeus himself used very innovative methods. We've heard from Isabel about that. Very innovative methods to tackle his own information overload, basically the whole of the natural world to be classified. And he used anything from index cards to what has been called 18th century spreadsheets. As custodians of one of the most important collections of Linnean material, our task is to preserve and also to order, to make sense of this important legacy. Thousands of specimens, labels, letters, index cards, drawings, notes, doodles, manuscripts, annotated book pages, and so on. Make it accessible to researchers and to provide an online platform to make research not only possible, but to actively facilitate it. So the Linnean Society has always been equally keen to use innovative methods to provide meaningful access to its Linnean collections. And when the online collections were launched in 2007, the perception was, I think, that the internet would sort it all out somehow. But did it? This is a question I'll attempt to answer at the end of my talk. I was very lucky to join the Linnean Society nearly 4 years ago during an interesting period for the Society's digital engagement. Early projects dating, I think, as far back as 2006 and subsequent years were well established online by the time I joined. They were hosted by the University of London Computer Centre. However, they were starting to show wear and tear. Technologies and user habits were changing ever more rapidly, and the online collections were starting to look a bit dated. However, a great project team, ambitious plans, and generous funding source was in place for current and also for new projects. So when I inherited responsibility for the online collections, it seemed like the ideal moment, really, to take stock, to review, but also to be bold and innovative, and to include the latest developments into the project's strategy and methodology. Unfortunately, this proved to be wishful thinking. Project backlogs, patchy paperwork for past projects, missing images, multiple versions of metadata databases, uncharted image files corrupting on external drives in cupboards, out-of-date information, being swept off my feet by general workload and deadlines. It felt like constant troubleshooting and a battle, really, to bring order into chaos rather than a structured, strategic approach. The main problems we faced were really a lack of continuity between individual projects, a breakdown of communication at that point with our platform providers. There was no time for feedback and review. And also, crucially, I think, there was no full-time project manager, the necessary background, or sufficient time to join things up, to check, chase, and pester, which seems to be what you're mainly doing as a project manager. So, however, thanks to our brilliant project staff and through renewed efforts to build an efficient working relationship with our platform providers, we were able to drive the evolution of the online collections forward. So what does this evolution look like? The online collections, especially the viewer, were initially set up for the specimen collections of Carl Linnaeus. These are of huge scientific importance as they include many types and are still considered as the beginning of the naming of living organisms. So this is essentially what was in place when I joined the Linnean Society in 2011. And as you can see, it's a basic but visually quite underwhelming image database powered by ePrints, a platform framework that was initially developed by the University of Southampton as an open source software for open access academic repositories, and it was mainly geared towards printed material. So as you can see, browsing is quite restricted. It's just a bullet list here of links. And the search functionality, on the other hand, is quite sophisticated within a single collection, for instance, the Linnean Herbarium, but only really if you're a historical botanist. The metadata is basic. It includes transcription from labels, but crucially, there's no determination information. So there's no clue as to the modern scientific or popular name of, say, a particular plant. Only the name given by Linnaeus in the 18th century. So you pretty much have to know what you're looking for. The zoomable viewer was designed to view biological specimens and a measuring tool, and you can see that it's very small, but you can see it here. So a measuring tool was seen as a great innovative feature to allow you to precisely measure parts of specimens, and great care was taken to image the specimens accordingly. Unfortunately, according to feedback from our researchers, this measuring tool seems never have been accurate enough, really, to have been of much use. So it may be that this was one of the things that seemed like a great innovative idea at the time, but maybe weren't. So all in all, I think the database delivered what it was designed for, what it was built for: free access to high-resolution, zoomable specimen images for scientists. Once the most pressing problems about sorting out image uploads and audits were on track to be addressed, it was acknowledged that a visually more attractive and welcoming and user-friendly interface was needed to fulfill another very important aim of the online collections, and that is the promotion of the Linnean Society, our collections, and our activities. So this is why a major platform upgrade was undertaken in 2013, and the result gave us a visually much more attractive framework. It was matched to the design of the new society website. It had a much cleaner design and also more options to browse using thumbnail images and to navigate. Another strategic aim that had become more and more important over time was the desire to be able to cross-search individual collections. So as Isabel has demonstrated in her talk, being able to link up the various threads and clues contained in different collections, for instance, the Linnean specimens, the manuscripts, the correspondence, the annotated books, provides invaluable information about how Linnaeus worked and his sources. It can also be vital for determining the scientific taxonomic status of his specimens. Which brings us to the platform as it stands at present, and you've seen examples of that. So user-friendly features were introduced, for example, great structured browsing for the Linnean annotated books. But one of the most important keys to enable this linking up of the individual collections is not only providing sophisticated cross-searching facility, and you're done. Obviously, you need the content to search. So you need the data, you need the metadata. Our biggest achievements so far, I think, are the 16 Linnean manuscripts online and the Smith Correspondence Project, precisely for that reason. There's a wealth of metadata painstakingly produced by our tireless, highly skilled staff cum researchers over a longish period of time. So in this example from the 16 Linnean manuscripts online, you can see here, and as Isabel's already demonstrated as well, a very detailed description summary of the page contents, often actual transcriptions and word-by-word translation of the Latin, which it really is a godsend for every subsequent researcher and allows precisely the kind of close linking up that we are trying to achieve. Also new is a slide viewer, and you can see that here, and you can click here and we'll just go slide through the pages, which can actually cope with multi-page manuscripts rather than just individual specimens. So this viewer is not only a slide view suitable for mobile devices, but it also allows a zoomable single-page view, so you've got effectively two viewers in one, which has been very effective. And I'm now able to give you a sneak preview of the future. So we are hoping to have a brand new, more contemporary, cool design overall, and a much improved viewer based on a viewer initially developed by the Wellcome Trust. This viewer, I think, really gives the item the space it needs to be properly viewed. We've had a lot of feedback from researchers that being able to go full screen is really essential to be able to meaningfully work with the material, especially with manuscripts and letters, and the new viewer should be a vast improvement. If we would like to enhance our online collections by introducing crowdsourcing, we really, I think, have to listen to this feedback and make it as easy as possible for people to contribute. So what is the new strategy, or rather blue sky wish list? We would still like the online collections to tick all the boxes that have been part of the strategy from the very beginning. So taxonomy, scientific research, history of science, partnerships, education, promotion, securing further funding, of course. So an important reason for initially choosing the University of London Computer Centre as platform providers and developers was seeking and strengthening the link to the academic community. So for a relatively small institution like ours, these links are vital. They inform and enrich our strategy. So choosing an academic rather than a fully commercial provider was an important strategic aim, which is still valid today. So we would like the collections to evolve further, to transform from a single repository or database to a network of items and projects, from a digital storage retrieval facility to a discovery tool, to bring back the serendipity, as was mentioned by Stefan in his introduction, to unite individual researchers and repository staff in communities of research and practice, from a top-to-bottom metadata approach to crowdsourcing, and from traditional research to large-scale data mining using new technologies such as handwriting recognition. So let me give you a few examples of our current strategic discussions. How to attract funding? Well, funding is often focused on single outcomes rather than evolution and ongoing development of projects, so we need to keep this in mind when planning for digital projects to be sustainable. We think that one answer to this is undertaking collaborative projects, and successful examples are, for instance, as mentioned before, contributing to the Linnean correspondence online, and Eva Nystrom will give you an interesting insight into this fantastic project after the coffee break. Another example is the Linnean Link Union Catalogue, a partnership and online union catalogue bringing together Linnean material held in institutions worldwide. We are also in the early stages of exploring the feasibility of a project called Linnean Shells Reunited, digitally reuniting the shell collection of Carl Linnaeus, of which one major part is held here at the Linnean Society and the other at Uppsala University's Museum of Evolution. On the techie side, our priority is to visualize data, for instance by geographic mapping, etc., and to facilitate the repackaging of images and data to be used as individual portfolios by field researchers, for instance, or educators. Or indeed to make research threads visible, similar to conversation threads in online forums. And this again links back to what Isabel was talking about. So by threads, I mean by items, data, and collections link up. Again, as mentioned at various points during previous talks. Crowdsourcing, very important. Allow communities of research and practice to develop and help with metadata input. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's afternoon session in this context. I think if properly managed and monitored, crowdsourcing can even supplement and expand traditional determination methods of types or of type specimens. So this could be a very important way to capture this information. And finally, tools to tackle big data, for instance, as explored by the EU READ project and its handwriting recognition technology. And the Society will be part of this project if it goes ahead and gets funded. And if anybody would like more information about this READ project, please come and see me. It's very exciting. I've got the first pages here. Sorry. So READ stands for Recognition and Enrichment of Archival Documents. Very interesting EU project. So, to conclude and to come back to my initial question of information overload, did the internet sort it all out? Well, I think the 3 Linnean Society project talks have shown that we have come a long way, but, at least for me, one conclusion is obvious. We now need to move on from single digital representation, from a digital cabinet to digital networks, to digital multi-purpose and digital multi-audience. We need to link up with and engage with communities of research and practice, and education outreach are really part of that equation. We need to stay and become more relevant, or the costs of maintaining online projects will not be sustainable long term. The academics, the digital infrastructure development experts, the data inputting geeks, the public, we need them all. And the careful optimism that the funders left out there will agree. Thank you.